I can tell you definitively that the Democratic leadership and the Democratic establishment will never voluntarily go in a new direction. They will never voluntarily accept populism.
Okay, but same with Republicans. How much money do you think Trump got from Elon Musk and Miriam Adelson? Both two insane fucking people in their own ways that are multi-billionaires. I mean, this is what's pissing me off. Like, if you're gonna say, oh, Democrats are ran by X, Y, and Z, you better acknowledge that Republicans are too. Money in politics goes both sides. Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're doing another react to Cenk because he decided to go on stage at Turning Point with Charlie Kirk. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment for more content like this, and let's get into it.
So Cenk, the spirit of inviting you is that there's some confusion of these divides of right versus left, populist versus corporatist. I guess a good opening would be, as a man in the progressive movement, as one of the leaders of the progressive movement, what do you make of this last year, the state of the Democrat Party, and kind of American politics from the more progressive left perspective?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm proud to represent the left flank of the populist movement, and I think we need both flanks, so I'm happy to have this conversation. In terms of what has gone wrong in the Democratic Party, it's the same thing that went wrong in the Republican Party, but I do have to give you guys credit for a revolution well done.
Then Cenk wonders why everyone hates on him. You wonder why, because you literally go to an event like Turning Point and you give Republicans credit. Revolution, what revolution are we talking about? Them electing a bigot? Do you even know what the definition of revolution is? Because electing Donald Trump isn't really a revolution. Actually, it's not a revolution at all. But I would have hoped that someone like Cenk would have understood that. Apparently not.
Is not a revolution against the Democratic Party or the left or the country, but a revolution against the establishment. So,
brother, ew. What fucking revolution against the establishment? What, just because Elon Musk has Trump by the balls, that's some sort of fucking class revolution? Be for real.
I knew you guys were for real in fighting against the establishment when I started going on right-wing shows and I would say something negative about Mitch McConnell. And when I did that in the past, what I would get back is, oh, no, Mitch McConnell's great. Pelosi's terrible, but Mitch McConnell's great.
Let's do it here. What do you guys think of Mitch McConnell?
All right. Yes, I love that. So look, for my left-wing friends that are watching out there, they just booed Mitch McConnell. That's a great thing. Okay.
Man, the bar is in hell. The bar is at Satan's ballsack.
Now, what we need to do in the Democratic Party is we need to do likewise. We need to have a revolt against the Joe Bidens, the Kamala Harrises, and the Nancy Pelosi's.
Okay, I don't disagree with that because fuck Nancy Pelosi and fuck Joe Biden. But with that being said, I don't necessarily know if Republicans have done a revolution against these old farts that are still in politics. Like, they're still in politics. They're still holding their position. Just because they're booing them at a Republican event doesn't mean that anything has systematically changed when it comes to both of them. So he's trying to make a point. I get where he's coming from. I just think it's a very stupid point.
And the Hillary Clintons, and now all of a sudden the Dick Cheneys. What are they doing on our side? Are you guys nuts? Right?
I have to interject. When all of a sudden Kamala Harris is doing the Liz Cheney thing, I said, does she want to lose? I mean,
what's amazing is I said the same thing. Look, Dick Cheney polls at 13%. What lunatic thought it was a good idea to wrap yourself around Dick Cheney? I mean, when we started the Young Turks 22 years ago, longest running show in internet history, first ever YouTube partner with original YouTubers, one of the driving forces was get Dick Cheney out of office, right? And now for Kamala Harris to come full circle and say, oh, I've got 90 corporate CEOs backing me, and I've got all these executives on my side, and I've got Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney on my side, it was so counterproductive. It's not what the left wing stands for. It's not what the Democratic Party should be about. So the problem is the establishment.
It's so easy to just be a political commentator and say, it's the political establishment. They're the ones controlling everything. Yeah, but you're also sitting on this stage saying that they successfully did a revolution. Last time I checked, Mitch McConnell still has his job. I mean, I get the booing is cool and we're getting somewhere with that, sure. But I mean, he's trying to paint this as if Republicans have really figured it out and they've been successful in this revolution and Democrats are still in the back, which I understand. I get it. I do think Democrats are really fucking bad with their messaging because Dick Cheney was an absolute war criminal. He has a lot of lives on his hand, especially Iraq and Afghanistan. But coming on here and and saying that Republicans have done a revolution and they've successfully gotten rid of all these establishment people, like, that's diabolical. That's just simply untrue.
Mainstream media, you think, is against you. You think they're against the right wing. But they also hate Bernie Sanders. And they also hate me. And they also hate the populists on the left. What mainstream media really loves is the establishment and the elites. They're against all of us combined. And if we dare unite on issues we agree on, they will be livid, and it'll be a beautiful day in America.
The way he's wording a lot of what he's saying on this stage is such grift, because first he rags on mass media, which is something that Republicans love to do. Then he says the corporate establishment. Then he's like, you guys successfully did a revolution. I mean, this is all pandering. Maybe he's not a grifter, but it's a pander, right? You're pandering to your audience, which is far right. And I think it's pathetic. I really do. I mean, I think as a person who's a leftist, like, I don't understand why you're sitting here with Charlie Kirk on a fucking stage. Like, that's pathetic in my opinion.
So let's kind of look at the last couple of years. We can go back to the Bernie Sanders thing. Explain to us, why is it that Rightwing Revolution was successful, and the Bernie Sanders with 2 attempts actually won the primary in 2016, and he had it stolen. Again, stolen election talk can be a little controversial. They stole it from Bernie Sanders in 2016. Why was that revolution not successful?
Yeah, I think it was because Donald Trump was a celebrity and they didn't take him seriously, so they made the mistake of giving him mainstream media coverage. And so they thought, and if you remember, Bill Clinton had this brilliant idea, we'll encourage Donald Trump to run on the Republican side and it'll destroy the Republican Party. How'd that work out for you, Bill? And so I remember saying at the time, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Because what I sensed was you need a non-politician to lead the revolt. So, because all the politicians, and right now they're having a conversation on the Democratic side about 2028, and the only people they mention are politicians. And my answer to that is hell no, okay? Because the politicians are used to the corruption. They grew up in the corruption. They like the corruption. They got their power through the corruption. So I don't want that. I don't need that.
I do think that for the next presidential run in 2028, they need someone that's not a politician. Now, with that being said, there's nothing different with someone like Donald Trump and a politician, because someone like Donald Trump had to be very crooked and play various different games in not a very ethical or moral way in order to make the money that he's been able to make. We know that about almost all billionaires in America or in any other country. The money they make in order to make those billions of dollars is usually unethical. That's a well-known fact. So for Cenk to sit up here and say, oh, politicians are this, that, and the third, and insinuate that Trump wasn't that, Trump offered something new that wasn't a political grift, is a little wild to me, because it's like, well, sure, he wasn't a politician, but he was still a mass, like a 1%er bourgeoisie type of person. And to me, it's like, what's the difference between someone like Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi? To me, they're both the same. They may make their money different ways, their titles may be different, their political affiliations and their political, tenure may be different, but they're both the same. They're both a part of the 1%. They're both a part of the bourgeoisie, and they both made their money by screwing Americans. So once again, pander, pander, pander.
We will disagree on, is Trump really not corrupt? Is Trump really going to do the things that he promised? Is he really a populist? I would love to prove me wrong. I would love that, okay? And my God, if Trump got money out of politics, I would give him all the credit in the world. We're not there yet. We're not close to there yet. And remember, guys, you also have donors. Beware of the donors. Don't forget that, and don't let your guard down. To my Democratic friends, how many times are you going to lose before you realize that mainstream media and the establishment are lying to you?
And so is that energy forefront in the Democrat Party right now? And I'm not saying this facetiously. Read us into what the power brokers of the Democrat Party are saying. Are they saying we need to run more to the middle, that we need to embrace more populism? We're hearing some of the names, but what is the vibe of the people that do this for a living?
Yeah, so I can tell you definitively that the Democratic leadership and the Democratic establishment will never voluntarily go in a new direction. They will never voluntarily accept populism. They are built on donor money. They are of the donors, by the donors, for the donors.
Okay, but same with Republicans. How much money do you think Trump got from Elon Musk and Miriam Adelson? Both two insane fucking people in their own ways that are multi-billionaires. I mean, this is what's pissing me off. Like, if you're gonna say, oh, Democrats are ran by X, Y, and Z, you better acknowledge that Republicans are too. Money in politics goes both sides.
Is the Democrat Democrat Grassroots, are they invigorated towards that end? Because it seemed as if they weren't obviously thrilled about Biden or Kamala Harris, but you could say whatever you want about Bernie Sanders. I have massive worldview disagreements. He had a legitimate grassroots movement behind him of small dollar donors, of people that were working, of activists. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like that has disappeared a little bit in recent years, or at least has gone to sleep. Am I correct in that? And what would it take to awaken that sleeping giant?
This is so funny to me because I can't believe Charlie Kirk just said that, oh, the progressive wing and the progressive movement is dead. The progressive movement is not dead. We live in a system that's established in a way where progressives are not able to win easily. There are so many progressives that run across the country, both on federal and state, local levels, on all different levels, and they lose miserably. Most progressives lose because when you don't have that kind of backing or corporate money, it's extremely hard to win a spot in politics.
I say this to you and I say it to the left wing. Bernie won the first 3 states in 2020. He was this close to winning until Obama and Clyburn called in all the candidates and said, you all have to bow to Joe Biden. And then mainstream media then said, Joe Biden is the greatest. And they started talking about how Bernie Sanders, the most successful Jewish candidate in American history, had followers who were brown shirts and fascists and Nazis. Where have you heard that before? So whenever it's an outsider, all of a sudden mainstream media says fascist, even if it's a Jewish candidate.
He said, where have we heard that before? We heard that with Trump supporters because they are fascists. I'll say this. I don't think that all Trump supporters are fascists. I feel like some of them are ignorant or they just don't follow politics as much, or they're just religious people and they feel like Trump presents that religious view, which I don't understand either because he's literally the last person that's religious. But I don't know. I think that's a wild thing to say, to insinuate, oh, where have we heard the fascist term before? For Republicans, yeah. Because there's actual, like, why are you conflating the two?
They're wrong. They're lying. So what I need Democrats to understand is stop believing in Morning Joe and The View and all the garbage on TV.
So that's a really good point about the media ecosystem. You guys are, without a doubt, the most popular, progressive, over-the-top, non-mainstream media sanctioned community. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 27 million subscribers, 30 billion views. I think it's fair to say.
No, I'm not saying that sarcastically. I don't know of anyone that comes close.
Okay, way to stroke Cenk's ego. He's actually on his downfall right now with his bestie Anna. But I wouldn't say they're the biggest. I would say Hassan's the biggest. So I'm just saying.
I could say confidently what we have on the right is pretty impressive. We have from podcasting to videos. We don't rely on cable television. Who here listens to podcasts or social media for all your news? Raise your hand. I mean, every single hand goes up. So do you think the left has some work to do in developing over-the-top media to be able to bypass the main networks?
Yeah, so we have TYT as a giant network, but we have a lot of great progressive and populist shows that are not part of TYT that's in the left-wing ecosystem. So I don't think that that's the issue. I don't think that there isn't enough shows. I think that there's a couple others. One, on the right, you guys do a great job of coalescing. Okay, so you do a couple of things well. You work together well, and you're more welcoming, if I'm being honest.
Okay, there's just so much to unpack here. I vehemently disagree with Cenk, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, the ecosystem that exists on the Republican side is way stronger and way bigger than the Democrat ecosystem that we have, or the left-wing ecosystem that we have when it comes to political commentary online. And that's because Republicans pour a ton of money into their media in spaces like Daily Wire or podcasts, or generally people who are, commentators on TikTok or Instagram. Meanwhile, people who are on the left wing have to pull their own content by their bootstraps, and we have to fund everything ourselves. We have to figure everything out ourselves. We have to edit. We have to find news. We have to figure it all by ourselves. Someone like myself, I started on my own. I had no money. I had no backing. So when Cenk is like, no, we have a lot of great media outlets, one of the biggest things is that the left wing isn't as nice as Republicans. That's insane. The funding that people like Charlie Kirk, Matt Walsh, Candace Owens, that does not exist on the Democrat side. And the only reason why Hassan makes as much money as he does is because his viewers send him money. It's not because he's sponsored or he gets money from, some bigwig donor or PAC. And so this is just wildly fucking untrue. And it's so, once again, it's disingenuous as fuck. It really is. Because when we look at the right, they have multiple different news channels. How many news channels do we have on the left? Not that many. Not that fucking many.
Honest. We're glad Cenk's here, right, everybody?
And a lot of people on the left know this as well. If you agree with MAGA 5%, the answer you get is welcome, right? Come join us, right? On the left, if you disagree 5%, they go, get out of here, you're a right-winger, you're a fascist, right?
Okay, I kind of see where he's coming from there. No, I think he's right when he says that, and I'll tell you why. So as a political commentator, I have said things that didn't resonate with all people on the left, and people are aggressive and mean as fuck on the left side. They're like, oh, you don't believe in this, you're a fascist, you're a right-winger, you're a grifter, blah, 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 blah. We have a lot of infighting, and I don't think he's necessarily wrong about that. I think that Republicans tend to stand together a lot more than the left wing does, and that's because Republicans all believe in main core tenets, and they don't necessarily debate about that. On the left wing of politics, we have a spectrum. You have the people who are fiscally conservative, but they're socially Democrat. You have people who are in the middle. You have people that are corporate Democrats. You have people that are progressive Democrats. You have socialist Democrats. You have people that are Marxist, but they vote under Democrat because they don't have any other choice. There's a lot of different ideologies that live under the left wing, but when it comes to the right wing, they have some core tenets and they all believe in that. That's one of the problems about the left wing, is that when a commentator makes a mistake, the left side of politics does not offer any kind of grace. They just attack you, because it's happened to me. I can say that that's definitely true. Probably the only thing I've agreed with Cenk on.
Look, I propose simple rules. The 3 rules of the internet. Rule number 1, when we disagree, we fight. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Now, rule number 2 is afterwards we must have a beer together, okay? And rule number 3 is, for God's sake, when we agree, let's unite. So, for the left, we have too much division. We almost never unify. I don't mean with the right, I mean internally. The left loves to attack one another. I love you guys on the left, I love you. But every once in a while, when we get a yes, when we agree, can we please unite? And the second thing we need is for the old, I'm being honest, and on average, not everyone, of course, but for the older Democratic voters, please turn off your television sets. They're lying to you, they're tricking you, they're trying to get you to vote for corruption, they're trying to get you to vote for policies you don't even want. So if we can do those 2 things, then we'll be in great shape.
Here's my thing about Cenk. I don't disagree with him, although you still have to fact check everything you see on the internet. Listen, I'm not a huge fan of mass media, but I still fact check everything I report through mass media, so that's kind of insane to just say, get your news from podcasts. You know, it's giving RFK anti-vaccine energy. But going beyond that, I think it's very interesting that someone like Cenk is sitting in front of a crowd of right-wingers with Charlie Kirk, and he's speaking to left-wingers. You have been invited on multiple left-wing podcasts and you refuse to go on, but yet your decision is to go on a Turning Point event with Charlie Kirk and speak to the left? I mean, what kind of strategy is that? You're talking about the left has to unite, but then you do some shit like that. How do you expect the left to unite? It's confusing.
So I'm not sure how you'll feel about this, but there is a consensus, not a consensus, there is a belief with some people like Seth Moulton and others that some of the embrace of what we would call wokeism or whatever was a reason why Democrats had a less than desirable election outcome. Do you subscribe to that belief?
If you really believe in the most far left positions, as I do on gun control, for example, that's okay. But you've got to know what to emphasize and what not to emphasize. And so if you say, no, I'm going to die on every extreme hill, well, you will. Electorally, politically, you will die on that hill. And then you lose on all of your issues, because it's sometimes a binary game. Certainly elections are. So you got to know what to convince the American people of and what to hold your ground on. And the number one thing to hold your ground on is constitutional rights. So I'm going to do some...
Like the Second Amendment.
No, I know. So guys, look at that. We totally disagree on that issue, but we just...
You were asking for that one, I'm sorry.
No problem. No, but look, but that was an important moment, because we totally disagree on that issue, but we just shook hands anyway. And you know what we'll do afterwards? We'll have a beer!
I just don't really get it. I don't understand how you can be so close to Republicans, but you decide to constantly shit on your left peers. I mean, he went on, Hassan's fucking show on Thanksgiving, and he fucking ran rambled on about left media. You know, it's just interesting to me because he's like, Republicans, you're so nice. See, you're so nice. I love you. All love to you. Hugs to everyone. But then he goes on Hassan's stream and he's like, fuck Sam Cedar. Fuck the Serbs. Fuck everyone. You know what I mean? Like, you're not making any friends doing this, dude. You're just not.
When we talk about trans issues in terms of sports, I know we have massive disagreements, okay? And so on one of those issues, professional sports, I agree with you guys. On high school sports, I don't. We'll go get into a bloody battle on that, okay? But I want to ask you guys something. Do you believe that trans Americans should have the same constitutional rights as all Americans to employment, health care, and housing? Constitutional rights.
Do you want me to translate? Well, there is no constitutional right to housing.
Okay, so I hear you. What I got out of that, guys,
I'm just trying to be the interpreter.
yeah. No, there was a lot of applause and there was some consternation, right? I'll take it. It's a start. So guys, when we can even disagree about what's constitutional, Second Amendment, housing, etc. But just let's treat everyone as Americans. And I say that to the right and I say it to the left.
For sure. So we're going to go a little overtime because I know the boss here. And there's two things. I want to ask about free speech, and then I want to try to say, can we get one or two action items that this community can get behind in this new Congress and this presidency that are popular?
Did you guys notice how Charlie flipped the conversation really fast and was like, And that's because Charlie knows that is a downhill battle that Cenk was about to make, because he knows that a lot of Republicans do not believe that trans people deserve basic rights. And so, but you know, you would hope that someone like Cenk would understand this. Unfortunately, he doesn't. But it's just the little things, you know what I mean?
Populist that maybe we can push for and advocate for. Now, I want to try to maybe see if we could brainstorm that together. Number one, the first on free speech. Do you think that the left, and you are an exception, is ready to embrace a robust, spirited culture of freedom of speech where disagreement is welcome, where you're able to have these kind of dialogues and forums? And I think it's a tragedy, it seems to be, that more the right is willing to do it. Prove me wrong if that really is the case.
Yeah, I'm trying to remind the left of who we are, because the left is supposed to be for freedom of speech. The left needs freedom. If you're gay or you're trans or you're Muslim or you're someone that was otherized at some point in your life, you need freedom more than anyone else does. You need equality more than anyone else does. You need justice more than anyone else does. So if you want those things, you've got to reciprocate. So you've got to not, I want you guys to not assume that we hate you or that we're evil or that we're bad. But if we're going to do that, the left wing has to do the same. They have to assume that you're not evil, that you don't hate them, and you're not all of these things. So I know from time to time we'll still get back into the battles and we'll still call each other names, right? But overall, if we can begin to not hate each other, and so when we disagree, let's try two more real quick here. Okay. When we disagree, can we agree to not hate each other? All right, excellent. And when we have these fights, to Charlie's point, can we, for the first time in my lifetime, begin to actually listen to one another?
My issue with this is that he makes it seem like people on the left and people on the right disagreeing is just apples and oranges. Oh, we're disagreeing on pizza toppings, or we're disagreeing on what we're gonna eat for dessert. But what we're disagreeing on is things like the occupation of Palestine and the genocide of Palestine, or trans rights, the idea that a human being should have the right to something that every single person should have the right to, right? It's not just a simple disagreement, it's the fact that some of their ideology stems out of and is rooted out of extreme racism and fascism, and you just expect us to kumbaya and just shake hands and say, you know what, you might not be for immigration rights, but fuck it, let's go get a beer. That's not the reality of life. It's not the reality of how we live. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I absolutely hate it when political commentators do this kumbaya bullshit. They go on stage or they talk to their audience and they're like, we just really need to find a way to get along. That has never been a part of human history. We have always been fighting. There have always been political qualms in American history, not just American history, but just global history, period. And take it from this political commentator to you. If a political commentator ever tells you, hey, let's go and we'll just kumbaya, we'll just sit down and we'll just handshake and grab a beer after, they don't know anything about politics or how politics actually works. Because some of my disagreements with right-wingers isn't just simple, oh, we should shouldn't raise minimum wage. Some of them don't believe in trans rights. I do. Some of them don't believe that genderqueer non-binary exists. I do. There's fundamental things that we disagree with that I believe are rooted in their fascism, and we can't just sit down and kumbaya it out. That's not how it works. Anyways, thank you so much for watching my YouTube channel. My name is Ariana Jasmine. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment for more videos like this, and I'll see you next time.